Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Carrying on with our zakat theme, there's been a question asked about whether zakat needs to be paid on money that's been lent out. So, where somebody has lent out money to a friend or a colleague or family members, do they need to pay zakat on that money? So, that's a really important question because, as you know, zakat is based upon our wealth and we need to pay zakat on all of our wealth, and we thus need to calculate our wealth properly. So it's important that we understand what our zakat should be. So the first basic rule is that money lent out is still your money. Thus you need to pay zakat on it. So when you're working out your wealth, you take your gold, silver, you take your business assets, you take your money in the bank, and you would also add on to it money that you've lent out to people. So if you've lent out £100, lent out £1,000, you need to add that to your bank account and to all your other items. So that's a basic rule. You have to pay zakat on that money, as long as you know that you will get it back. Obviously, we'll come on to whether it turns out to be a bad loan or not later on in another video. But basically, if you're expecting that money back, then for whatever period that money is lent out, you will have to pay zakat on it. However, as point 2 says, you have a choice. You can pay the zakat each year. So at the end of each year, you can pay the zakat on that money you've lent out. Or because you don't have access to that money or you don't have hold of that money, you can wait until the end of the borrowing period, and when you get the money back, you can pay the zakat, but you'll have to pay the zakat for all those years in between. So if you lent out the money for 4 years, you don't have to pay zakat physically on those during those 4 years, but at the end of those 4 years, you will need to pay zakat for all of those 4 years. So you'll have 4 years worth of zakat to be paid, or 5 years worth of zakat to be paid, whatever that loan period was. As soon as you get the money back, you'll have to pay it immediately, as we said in an earlier video. As soon as zakat is liable, you need to pay it immediately. So you have a choice here. While some money is still lent out and you haven't had that repaid to you, you can wait to get it back, or you can pay from other money during that period, so you don't have that large zakat to pay at the end of the loan period. Ideally, one of the concepts of Sharia is that you do what is good for the poor. So therefore, obviously, paying them each year is beneficial for the poor than having them wait till the end of the loan period to get that large lump sum for you to pay out. So if you can pay during the year, I would recommend you do that during the loan period each year, but you are allowed to wait to the end. One thing to remember when you are working this out is that when you're working out your zakat period, make sure you deduct the zakat from those earlier periods. And I'll come on to the next slide to show you that, which means that when after a year's passed on that money that you've lent out, 2.5% of that is no longer your money. You have to pay that over, even though you physically haven't. Therefore, when you come to year 2 to work out the zakat, you would work out the zakat on that reduced amount, which was your initial amount less the first year's zakat that was paid. So, for example, in this example here, you lent out in the year 2020 £100. At the end of that year, your zakat will be £2.50 because that's 2.5% of the £100. Then in the subsequent year, that money is still lent out. The amount you will pay zakat on is £97.50 because £2.50 of the £100 is no longer yours. That's zakat. So you only own £97.50 of that zakat, and that will be £2.44 on the basis of 2.5%. Come to the following year, you will only pay zakat on £95.06 because that's what you own, because £2.50 from the first year and £2.44 from the second year have already been deducted. Although you haven't physically paid them over, you've accumulated those, you will pay them over at the end, but the amount that is your money, because as soon as the year was up, that 2.5% of that money, of that wealth, was no longer yours. It belongs to the poor. So you reduce your amount. So in year 2022, you're going to pay 2.5% on £95.06, and you pay £2.38. If those of you who are mathematically inclined and are good at calculations, you'll know that £2.44 in 2021 was actually £2.43 and something. So another concept of Sharia is that you always when you have a choice between two things, for example, we could have rounded up or rounded down. So the choice is you always choose the option that is beneficial to the poor, which is obviously where you pay more here. So whenever you're rounding, when it comes to zakat, always round up and always round in a way that will actually give more money to the poor. That obviously benefits the poor, but it also benefits you because it makes sure that you never underpay your zakat. So may Allah Ta'ala give us the ability to understand the rule of Sharia and to act upon them, and to understand the rules, especially of zakat, which are quite complicated if we don't get our head around them. If there are any more questions, please do put them in the comment or private message me. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.